So I just cleared over 500 miles, actually about 549 I believe, and now it's time for the 500-mile review of the Giant Trance E Plus 2 Pro 29er 20 mile per hour, which is the USA version that is limited to 20 instead of 15. Frame and geometry, I really like it. This is my first long travel bike that's more than 100 millimeters of travel. Still handles nimble, very agile, and really don't notice the weight. This bike is all stock. It was set up by the shop I got it at, which is Big Shark in St. Louis. They set it up tubeless. They set up the initial shock pressures for the recommended settings. We did the shifting, all the good things setting a bike up. And I really haven't done anything to it except I've changed the grips to some Ergon GA2s, the fats, just because I have weird long fingers. SPD pedals from Shimano so I can stay clipped in, because I hate having a foot slip off, and I'm used to cross country, so I'm just always clipped in for that. Took off the dork disc, left the bell on. Tires are the standard Maxxis that come with it, and they seem really grippy. I like them. No reason to change them. It's the widest tires I've ever had at 2.6. This is a lot of bike for this trail. I often ride my single speed hardtail here, so obviously longer travel, full suspension is not necessary at all, but it sure is a lot of fun and comfy. I had the flip chip on the frame set for the higher setting just because that's typically the kind of riding I'm going to do on this. Not a lot of long downhill need for that lower little bit of geometry in there. You can see I run it usually on the second assist level. It seems to be plenty. Gives a nice little boost up hills and coming out of turns, but I don't feel like I'm totally slacking either. I work up pretty good sweat, get the heart rate up, keep the heart rate up. This is an uphill. It's supposed to be a downhill with some berm corners and some little water bar jumps. And with the e-bike, they're uphill jumps. Really got a nice flow to it downhill. We don't have a lot of jumps here in this region, but those are really more for drainage than they are jumps. But this bike handles them great. Some general things about e-bikes. You might find that you ride 2 to 4 times longer every time you go out. You might find you go out on days where it's too hot, where you would normally just say, no, it's too hot, I don't want to cook out pedaling up hills and stuff. Come out and still ride and not feel like you're dying. Another general thing about e-bikes is it does not get you off the hook for steering, handling, braking, all that. And when you're riding 2 to 4 times longer than you normally would, you suddenly realize your upper body starts to adapt, and that is unexpected, but kind of a nice little side benefit when I get on my other bikes that are not e-bikes. All the specs for this bike are available on the Giant site, and like I said, they're pretty standard. Grips, pedals, that's really the only mods. And just, you know, very usable component set. I don't have the urge to change anything. I don't know that I've really even feel like I need to upgrade anything. It all works really good. Plan on changing brake pads out for a big trip, but that's, you know, 500 miles in. I've never kept track of how fast I wear out brake pads, so it seems a little quicker than normal. This is where these bigger tires really shine. They just float over this stuff. The GoPro always flattens out the terrain, but this is like steep enough it's hard to walk up. This is my first dropper seat post, and it seems fine. I think it's just like a house brand or something, but it works great. Surprisingly, the saddle is a good width for me. It supports my sit bones, so I don't think I'll be replacing it anytime soon, just because it works. Seems to be relatively quiet. I've heard other e-bikes, and I can't say they're really louder or quieter. It's just pretty typical e-bike sound, a little bit of motor whir. Wheels and tires are, I think, pretty good. I haven't really noticed any major flex or anything out of the wheels, and the tires are just kind of run-of-the-mill. Max is 29. Hey, this is Assist 2. I just crawl right up that stuff. I am putting some effort into it, but again, that's one of those things where the GoPro flattens it out, and it's steep enough, it's hard to walk up that. Another general thing about e-mountain bikes, you're more likely to go exploring and just go riding for longer than you thought you would or planned to, without worrying about, oh, am I going to ride down into some really steep valley that practically going to kill me to get back out of. You just go for it. This thing's actually pretty easy to get the front end up, even though the bike's like 57 pounds, I think is what it weighs out at. It just floats right up over stuff. It's got Fox shock on the front, Fox in the middle. Really doesn't feel like 57 pounds of bike underneath you. About the first half a ride when I got it, took a little adjusting to, because when you sling it around in the corners, and that could just be the wheelbase, it's way longer than anything else I have, but slinging it around in the corners, could really feel it. But now it's fine. It feels very nimble, and in some ways I'll throw it into corners harder than my cross-country bike. Drop the post down a little bit, hit this drainage bumps. Yeah, that's what they are. The software seems solid. There's been several firmware updates since I've had it in November of 2022. I haven't really noticed the app has changed or that the bike has changed. So I don't even know what was in those, and to be honest, don't really use the app that much. I usually kick it on just to map the ride, but you can do the exact same thing with Map My Ride or whatever other app you like to map rides with. Interestingly enough, wildlife like deer, I just went by one, they are not spooked by this any more than they are by my regular bikes, including my single speed, which has a silent hub, and when I'm coasting makes zero noise. I don't know if this is a general e-bike thing or if it's something built into the Giant / Yamaha motor software, but when you're going on slippery stuff like some freeze thaw that's solid ice and a layer of slimy mud on top, it'll barely over rotate. If I was on my regular bike on something that slick, the back wheel would probably just blow loose. And I've tested it out on all kinds of loose gravel, uphill starts from a dead stop, just trying to break the back wheel loose on whatever, and you really, it doesn't happen. It doesn't do anything like when you put the power down too hard on your regular bike and it blows the rear wheel loose and shoots a bunch of rocks or dirt or whatever. It's almost like traction control when you're in your car, and as soon as it starts to detect wheel slip, it's like it checks your power level going into the wheel and just stops it from slipping. If I had to come up with a negative, the bottle cage area is really small, and I have to use like a little stubby water bottle unless I'm wearing a Camelback, which I would normally do on longer rides. But trails like this where I can loop back to the car and get another cold water bottle, since this one will probably get hot and yucky anyway. I just like to see bigger water bottle holder, but I think that's pretty much true on just about every full suspension e-mountain bike. Battery life, that's a hot topic. This has the 625 battery, and so far on a trail like this for over 2 hours, there's a good chance I'll still be 75% when I'm done, and maybe not bother charging it before I come back and do the same thing again and still be at like 40%. So battery life is great. Again, it depends on how you use it. I'm using it mostly, and especially on something like this, in assist 2 out of 5. If you put it into 4 or 5, and I have done that on different trails with a lot steeper grades and extended uphills, it'll definitely chew through the battery quicker, but it still seems great. Like, I'll wear out before this does. Another thing about battery, and this is true for really any battery in general, but on e-mountain bike batteries or e-bike batteries, because they're pretty high amp for what they are, to keep the contacts clean. At some point a couple months ago, I noticed every now and then I'd go to turn the bike on and it was reluctant to turn on, and just by chance I kind of bumped it, and it came to life, like, and then a light went on in my head and was like, oh, I'll bet the battery contacts are kind of crowded up. And sure enough, this heat and humidity we have in the Midwest, and probably anywhere else that has that kind of stuff, your battery terminals might get a little crowded up. Another general thing about e-mountain bike is that you might find your skills rapidly improving, or even getting new skills you didn't have before. For one, if you're going on rides that are 2 to 4 times longer than what you're used to, and in my case, a bigger, longer travel bike, it's more capable in hitting terrain you wouldn't normally take a cross-country bike on, you might find, wow, this is a change in the game for me. for us older mountain bikers that want to keep what little knee cartilage we have left from doing all kinds of other things like BMX and jumping off roofs and all kinds of stupid things, this is awesome. I can ride as long as I want, in some cases longer, and knees are totally fine and good to go the next day. So if that's a consideration, you probably definitely want to be looking at an e-mountain bike in your future. So there you have it, the Giant Trance E Plus 2 Pro 29er, 20 mile per hour. Long, crazy name, but that's the USA version, and I think it's a good value. So far it's been just fantastic riding, really enjoying it as a upgrade from a cross-country bike. And if you have any e-mountain bike questions, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll get back to as many as I can.